Let's begin today with a fun fact. There has only been one person in history who has won an Olympic medal, then became disabled, and then went on to win a Paralympic medal. Just one person. And as you might expect, it is one of the most incredible stories from the world of sports that you will ever hear. So today, let's learn a little bit more about Hungarian fencer Pál Szekeres, his Olympic career. Born on September 22, 1964, Pál Szekeres discovered the sport of fencing at a relatively young age, and he got really good really fast. He was captivated and inspired by the heroes he read about in books like Zorro and Ivanhoe. This instilled in him a deep attachment to fencing that would last for his entire life. At around the age of 12, he was small in stature compared to his fencing peers, but he was an absolute fighter, a fact which will become increasingly obvious in later years. After failing to be selected for a Hungarian Junior World Championships team he had been working towards, that could have easily been the end of his story. But he doubled down and went all in on fencing, eventually rising to the top of the Hungarian fencing world. He actually made the senior men's team in 1984, which would have meant a place at the Olympics, but then politics got in the way. Hungary boycotted the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics alongside many other Soviet bloc countries in retaliation for the 1980 Moscow boycott. His Olympic dreams were dashed, but with hindsight, they were really only put on pause. And that's because 4 years later, he found himself at the 1988 Olympics in Seoul, and alongside his Hungarian countrymen, he won bronze in the men's team foil event. For a time afterwards, in 1989, he was actually ranked as the #1 men's foil fencer in the world. And with the Barcelona 1992 Olympics on the horizon, he was aiming for gold. And he was only in his early 20s at the time, with the best years of his career ahead of him. And then, in the blink of an eye, everything changed. The accident. In April 1991, Szekeres woke up confused in a field in Germany. He reached down, touched his legs, but he couldn't feel anything. As it turns out, the bus he had been riding in was involved in a catastrophic accident, and he had broken his back, suffering debilitating injuries to his spine that altered his life forever. And as you can imagine, the next few weeks and months were bleak. He was confined to a wheelchair, his Olympic dreams were shattered, and his day-to-day experience in the world would never be the same again. But in what would become characteristic of the man, he basically said, "Nah, that ain't me," and he turned his mind around 180 degrees. In time, he realized that his wheelchair could actually be viewed as his liberator, allowing him continued independence, though very different than before. And perhaps just as importantly, he realized that he could still fence, as his arms worked just fine. By November of that year, just 7 months after the injury that changed his life, he became the European champion in wheelchair fencing. Unreal. And much more lay ahead, as the 1992 Barcelona Games were just around the corner. His Paralympic career. As European champion, and because he was awesome, Szekeres was a shoo-in for the Hungarian fencing team headed to the Paralympics in 1992. He remained in his bread-and-butter event, individual foil, and was the favorite to win. And sure enough, he brought home gold, less than 18 months since his accident. He would later say that all of the bad feelings in his life just instantly disappeared, and his new focus in life firmly took hold. 4 years later, in the 1996 Atlanta Paralympics, it gave him another opportunity to shine, and boy, oh boy, did he ever shine. He won gold again in the men's individual foil event, repeating as champion, but Szekeres was on to side quests at this point, as he had entered the men's individual saber event as well. And I won't delay the inevitable here any longer either. He won gold at that event too. I'm telling you, what an athlete. The hardware wasn't done flowing either, as he won more medals in 3 further consecutive Paralympic Games in 2000 in Sydney, 2004 in Athens, and 2008 in Beijing. That's 5 consecutive Paralympic Games where he won medals. Fantastic stuff. And don't forget, this all started with him winning bronze at the 1988 Olympics. So the guy was seriously starting to run out of room in that trophy case at home. And before you think he was slipping too hard at the end of his career, you should know that he came in first at the European Championships in 2011 in the men's individual foil event. He was 47 years old at the time. But as amazing as these accomplishments are, and if you can believe it, I'll put my foot down here and say that Szekeres was actually more successful outside of his athletic career. That might sound crazy, but I think it's true, so let's talk about why. His non-athletic achievements. So, of course, all good things must come to an end, and he couldn't compete forever, but all of that fighting spirit was to be channeled elsewhere, and that was into accessibility. And it was a fight that started long before his retirement from sports. When he arrived back in Hungary following his injury, he was faced with the realization that his country was just not built for people like him, just like so many other places around the world in the early 1990s. Not only were the sports facilities he desperately needed for training not accessible, but things like cinemas and nightclubs and grocery stores and other day-to-day aspects of life were effectively off limits. And obviously, a dude like this is not going to let that slide. Incredibly, in 1999, he became the Deputy Secretary of State in the Ministry of Youth and Sport. Remember, he's still a Paralympic athlete at this point. He's only been to 2 of his 5 Paralympics so far. He held this position for 6 years and used this as the launching point to change the lives of people all over his nation, efforts which he will quickly point out are still a work in progress. Today, nearly 100% of the buildings in Hungary are wheelchair accessible, and even more remarkably, the employment rate for those with impairments has gone from just 8% to over 52% now, in no small part because of Szekeres' political efforts, but also because of the fact he became a reluctant celebrity who proved that individuals in wheelchairs could still achieve incredible things. When it comes to Paralympic fencing, and indeed the Paralympics themselves, he's made just as incredible an impact. From 1996 to 2000, he was a member of the presidency of the International Wheelchair Fencing Committee. From 2001 to 2005, he was a member at large of the European Paralympic Committee, working primarily in administration for this group. In 2005, he became president of the Hungarian Sports Federation for the Disabled. And I wish to again point out the fact that through all of this, he was still training to be a Paralympic athlete, and he had that other government job too. What a beast! In 2005, he was a member of the Executive Committee of the National Paralympic Committee of Hungary. In September 2013, he was selected as a board member of the International Wheelchair Fencing Association, and he became that group's president in November 2016. Oh, and for good measure, from 2010 to 2014, he was appointed as the Deputy Secretary of State for the Ministry of Natural Resources in Hungary. I'm telling you, the guy is a legend. His legacy. In the history of sports, there are names that signified unparalleled triumph, but few of those names resonate quite like Szekeres. Picture a young boy captivated by the romanticized duels of medieval heroes, transforming his childhood dreams into reality by becoming not just an Olympic fencing medalist, but also a Paralympic legend. Yet Szekeres' story extends far beyond the metallic clinks of sabers and foils. From the precipice of despair after that devastating accident, he became an unyielding force for societal change. His legacy is this tapestry of resilience and ambition and advocacy. In a world often defined by limitations, Szekeres redefined what is possible, ensuring his life story will inspire generations to believe in their own extraordinary potential. Thanks for watching today's video, everyone. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, if you have some ideas for topics you'd like to see me cover, feel free to suggest them with #idea so I can easily find them. Until next time, friends, talk again soon.